Hey everyone, it's Glenn with ERD, and today it's our 30th birthday. Well, actually, it's not our 30th birthday to ERD, it's our 30th year, the starting date. So, as part of that celebration for the next year, I'm going to make some educational videos to highlight some of the things that we have seen at ERD over the last 30 years of repairing electronics. Most people out there are oblivious to what's going on inside the box. It's all magic until the smoke is let out. But here, we get to play with every detail, every part, and we've seen almost every kind of technology. So we're going to start with motor controls. Everybody sees motor controls. They're common everywhere today. But 30 years ago, there were not a lot of motor controls. The early motor controls from the late 70s were clunky, big, and really expensive. And then over the years, until you get around the mid 90s, with the development of the individually gated bipolar transistor, IGBT, you didn't see a lot of motor controls. So in the early 90s and mid 90s, when we started as a repair company, the technology for a 30 horsepower motor control used 3 individual IGBTs to fire the 3 phases of the AC motor. So you had these 3 modules, and you would have them hooked into the base of the drive. They would go out, each one for a phase of the motor, and they would run the motor. Well, like anything in electronics, it's all about smaller, more efficient, and cheaper to build. About 10 years later, in the early 2000s, you started to see the development of these little modules. This module right here is a IGBT that is the same ratings as these 3 combined. You have these 3 modules crammed all into this one module that then gets soldered into the main board of the driver. Now, this is a heat sink, like right here. But the problem is when it fails, well, if one output fails, which is common in a motor control, you have to replace the whole module because it's a one-piece thing. So that went for a while, and then they started even getting smaller. So here in the front are 30 horsepower motor control blocks called a 6-pack. This is an IGBT with all 6 transistors in it, 3 phases, 2 transistors each. Now, this is a blown up one right here where one phase blew up. I took the top off. This is one that really let the smoke out. There's not much left of this one. And then this is what it looks like before it blows up. Now, the interesting thing about these electronics is it's mostly plastic, which is dubious sometimes when the whole chassis is plastic. The only metal heatsink is this little plate right here, which the actual transistors are bonded to. In other words, the substrate is what they call this piece right here, is incorporated with the heatsink as one piece. And then you have all the little wires and the bonds and everything else. So you would say, okay, that's a big change in size. And it is. But the other important thing about this particular module is this is a non-soldered part. So here, right here, you can see all these little holes. These are springs. These go into the module, and as you apply pressure on the board, it makes an electrical connection mechanically from the pad on the board to the pad on the transistor module. So you don't use solder. You take this module, you have a board specially designed with the pads, you pop it on here, then there's this little plate above it that you torque to a specific spec. So this is a skip module, European. It's out of a motor control that's made in Europe for actually an elevator, and they tend to explode like this when they fail. One of the reasons we believe that they fail so harshly like this is it's a spring that's making all the connections. And for those of you who know about physics or know about springs, is a spring has a K factor, which is the springiness. Well, over time, a compressed spring slowly degrades in terms of its springiness. So if this unit vibrates, you can get intermittent connections between the pad and the spring connection. And well, you get an uncontrolled firing sequence, and this is what you get. This is unfortunately a lot of what technology is moving to, a lot of these throwaway modules and parts. And it does make our life a little more difficult, but for 30 years, we've been figuring this stuff out. And this drive that comes out of this, we're going to be able to bring it back to life. Unfortunately, we're going to have to use these parts, but it will be able to get the customer another 5 to 10 years of life out of this driver. So once again, any questions, please reach out to us here at our channel and wait for the next issue in this. And here we are at ERD, where we're repairing the world one power module at a time.